Welcome back to the Hannahcast YouTube channel, everyone. My name is Christian. We got a really special guest. He's the one guy to challenge Mr. Beast to a movie debate boxing match. It's the Film Drunk.
What's up? That's right, I did. He's too scared, though.
And today, we're going to be talking about our predictions for the Best Visual Effects category of the Oscars. There's enough to go off of in terms of predicting what's nominating, or at least what will be nominated. But there's also still some outliers that could just like absolutely catch us by surprise. I mean, going into 2022, and I'm still really sore over this, but like, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, like, I thought was a clear number 2 behind Avatar. Like, obviously Avatar was winning, but it's like, the fact that Doctor Strange 2 just got completely ignored this entire season really rubbed me the wrong way. And then there was stuff like 13 Lives and All Quiet on the Western Front that, at this point in the year, I would have never even known about. And so, hearing about, and so when seeing them on the shortlist, I was like, damn, like, this is crazy. Like, what were your general thoughts on the visual effects category this year?
There was nothing too much for me. I wasn't really passionate about anything because it was so clear that Avatar was winning.
Yeah.
So there's like no point in my head of like being like, oh man, I wish this was number 3 or whichever. I mean, I agree with you. I am someone who came out of Multiverse of Madness, out of that screening, and I was like so confident that that was a good movie and everyone else would like it. And then I guess I was like one of the few people who were actually like, yeah, that was a good movie. Everyone else thought it was mid. But I mean, yeah, the 13 Lives thing was pretty weird. I felt like that took off like really last minute and obviously didn't manifest anything. But to be fair, when you actually see the visual effects, I get it.
Oh no,
it's just one of those things where it just comes on like super late and out of nowhere. If they kind of pushed that a little bit earlier, maybe that would have manifested into something. But yeah, the All Quiet, it feels like there's always some war-related movie in visual effects as long as it's decent. So no real complaints, honestly, from the visual effects because, I mean, of course Avatar was going to win.
Again, it's just the Doctor Strange thing really got me sore, especially when you had that, like, that film being really crazy with visual effects and really imaginative, especially with that scene where like they're just barreling through the multiverses, and then you have Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, which is kind of just doing what Aquaman did, except murkier. But that's just me.
Yeah.
And with All Quiet on the Western Front, I gotta say, I didn't mind the idea of that getting nominated because apparently that whole film with as many big action sequences as there were, the film only cost $20 million.
Yeah.
So like, I didn't mind that, but it's just, God, Doctor Strange, that really got me. That got me so mad. Speaking of clear frontrunners, I think I called this from when the first one came out. I was like, the next few years is just gonna be another. It's just gonna be a hot potato between the visual effects winner being Dune and Avatar, because Dune's clearly winning this.
Yeah, it's already probably the lockiest lock, at least as of now. In April, it has to be.
Yeah, like, it's not even, like, even with Best Animated Feature, I don't know who's gonna win, because it could be Spider-Verse 2, it could be the Miyazaki movie, I forget what that one was called.
How Do You Live, yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that, especially considering it's supposed to be, like, a very personal film of his.
Yeah, I think that's a passion project of his.
Maybe elemental surprises, I don't know, but overall, I think there's just, unless somehow Dune has like Black Panther 1 level visual effects, there's no way it's not winning visual effects. So the other lock that I would also say, and for a nomination, would be even though I just was talking about a Marvel movie previously being a number 2. But Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. The Guardians of the Galaxy movies have done a lot better than even I would have anticipated, because obviously the first one was going to get nominated. Sure. But then, out of nowhere, and I don't mind that, and especially in hindsight, I really like this nomination. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 defied expectations, because most of us thought it was going to be Dunkirk and Shape of Water, but then the last 2 nominees ended up being, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 on Kong Skull Island. And I think out of any Marvel movie this year, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 has to be the one with the best shot of a nomination.
Yeah. I mean, looking at, or I guess thinking about the top 5, I don't know where I would have it, but out of the Marvel movies, it seems most likely that Guardians 3 would do it. I mean, if the first 2 got in, and especially how Disney is advertising this as the end of the Guardians, something that the Academy obviously is not afraid to nominate,
Yeah.
versus something like the Captain Marvel sequel or the much panned Ant-Man and the Wasp, then it kind of looks clear that Guardians would be the best shot for Marvel this year.
Yeah, and again, like the Guardians, like out of the granted, we haven't seen really anything much. Actually, we did get a brief trailer for the Marvels, but even from looking at the trailers, it's like Guardians, like in terms of visual effects, like Guardians of the Galaxy just seems to have the best effects of this, at least this year's potential lineup of, Marvel films, which goes into my number three, which I'm putting it at number three below Guardians because I need to see how much visual effects there are in Oppenheimer. Now,
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan does really well with the visual effects category. Like Batman, like the Dark Knight got nominated, only lost to Benjamin Button. And if I'm not mistaken, it actually tied with Benjamin Button for either tied or was like number two in the most visual effects society award wins. And then Inception won visual effects, and then Interstellar won visual effects. And well, granted, there wasn't really any competition that year, but like Tenet won visual effects, which I kind of
Still
like.
counts, kind
Yeah,
of.
I'd probably put I don't want to sound mean, but I'd probably pull a little bit of an asterisk in there considering all of the competition was gone. Like, Dune
Yeah.
was gone, Free Guy was gone, Top Gun was No Time to Die, all of it was gone. So, yeah. But with Oppenheimer, it's really interesting because Nolan did say that he recreated a nuclear explosion using practical means, which I don't think he actually nuked a desert. I don't. Then again, I don't know. Maybe he is that crazy. I mean, I wouldn't put that past him. But, um,
Yeah.
but like, if it is like a big miniature or whatever kind of CG touch ups, I don't know. If it's about the testing of the nuclear bombs, it would have to be like I'm assuming there would be like multiple sequences. Like, do they actually get to like the really horrific stuff in that film, and show sequences there? I don't know. What are your thoughts on Oppenheimer potentially getting nominated for visual effects?
Yeah, well, let me say this is actually good because I usually don't think about some of the craft categories this early. I kind of stick to above the line. So, admittedly, I haven't done that much on visual effects. I will say my first instinct was to be like, oh, of course, Oppenheimer would be a number two, the Dune Part Two, the visual effects branch. And as far as a win, they tend to go with a Best Picture nominee or the most like a Best Picture nominee, whether
Yeah,
that's
like
something
Tenet.
like a First Man, Tenet. Obviously, Love and Monsters from that year was not going to be a Best Picture nominee. Tenet would be like closest one. So that's why I was kind of like, well, Oppenheimer should be number two. Well, when you really start to think about it, I mean, you said it. It really depends on how much is practical versus visual effects, and that's the one thing that I always struggle with in visual effects. The movies where they brag, and I'm not saying that as like a dig, but
Oh
they
no, no,
talk
that's fine.
very publicly about how like there's not a lot of visual effects, it's all practical, we shot it in camera. Whether that's something even like Top Gun Maverick last year, earlier in the year, I remember people were juggling whether or not Top Gun Maverick was even in the five or not.
Yeah,
So with that, I always struggle with that in my head. I think three is a fair placement for Oppenheimer. If I had to bet right now, I would still say it gets nominated. But I mean, you just never know how insane Nolan is. But I think it has to be in the five. I would assume for now. I think
yeah.
that's a good placement.
And yeah, I don't have it up higher because and the thing is, it's not even just between practical versus visual effects. Because, like, I think as long as you're creating an effect, it can still work. Like, for example, like an
Sure.
animatronic in Jurassic World. Like, it's not a
Right.
real dinosaur, but Christopher. I wouldn't personally have nominated Tenet for visual effects because crashing a real life jet into a real life airport, that's not really an effect. You're just doing that. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, holy shit. I'm like, my jaw's on the floor, but I was like, you're not really pulling off an effect there, Nolan. So
Yeah.
again, but because even Dunkirk didn't pull off a visual effects nomination because
Right.
a lot of it was literally real. Number four is what I'm kind of. I'm looking to see where this goes, and that's Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny because I mean, And it's really because of one thing, but this one thing I'm really excited to see how much of it is there is in there, and that is like the de-aged Harrison Ford,
Yeah.
because the way he looks in the trailers, if this version of the character is going to be like doing a bunch of crazy shit, I mean, already, in my opinion, he looks perfect. He doesn't look really uncanny at all. But maybe there's also like some No Time to Die kind of effects where it's like, the effects are invisible, but they are a lot more crazy than you think they were. What are your thoughts on maybe Indiana Jones pulling this off?
I think that actually might be like my personal number two when I eventually do a video, because the Academy does like the de-aging stuff. And to your point, like the trailer, him de-aged, it looks fantastic.
Yeah.
It looks really good, like incredibly seamless. And now it's been a few years that we've seen movies start to do this. I mean, obviously, like The Irishman got nominated
Oh, yeah.
for what they did. And this might sound weird to say, but if de-aged Harrison Ford has like even a decent amount of screen time, which I would have to assume he does,
Yeah.
because how much they're showing it in the trailer. If he looks that good throughout when he is on screen, I think this is a layup for a
Yeah.
nomination.
Yeah, it really does depend on how much of him there is, because I was for sure Ghostbusters Afterlife was going to get a nomination because CGI Egon looked really freaking good and the ghost stuff kind of helped, but he was barely in the film, so maybe that hurt the film's chances. If what you're saying is correct, like if if young Harrison Ford is in a significant chunk of this movie, then maybe this could actually get a visual effects nomination. So, yeah. And then there's one that the one that inevitably people are gonna come after me over, The Little Mermaid. And people are like, oh, Christian, nobody likes these Disney remakes. It's like, maybe most people don't, but you know who does? Or at least who likes the effects in these movies? The visual effects branch. Because they nominated Alice in Wonderland. The Jungle Book won. The Lion King maybe could have won had it not been for, 1917 and Irishman in there, which in my opinion still should have won, considering it's so fucking groundbreaking, but that's just me. And, there's also Mulan, but you also had Christopher Robin, even though I saw it coming a mile away, this is one of the predictions I was really proud of. I saw Christopher Robin's nomination for visual effects coming a mile away, and it did end up getting nominated over more predicted movies like Mary Poppins Returns or Black Panther. I think there's a lot more groundbreaking stuff in Little Mermaid than people are letting on, because trying to do this kind of underwater shit with mermaids as main characters, for one, that's going to be pretty hard. Like, and I'm kind of watching the trailers and I'm just like, how much of these people are CGI versus how much of them are real? Like, I don't know where it stops. I feel like that curiosity and that kind of like what we're seeing from the trailers, I think this is gonna be the one that no one really thinks is gonna get nominated. That's gonna get at least have a very good chance. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I pretty much agree. To me, the only way that this doesn't get a nomination outside of just being like an awful movie or just wow, the visual effects are actually bad, is kind of what we talked about earlier, where a random movie like All Quiet or 13 Lives just like picks up steam.
Yeah.
If that happens, then I think the Little Mermaid would probably be on the chopping block. But as of now in April, where we don't know what that surprise movie may or may not be, I mean, I think it makes sense. I'm someone who I'm not really excited for it. I'm not like crying about it like a lot like a lot of people are. But the visual effects, they look good, and you can't discount the underwater stuff. Something about the underwater visual effects just speaks to people. So
Number 6 is probably the next best bet. Depending on again, kind of depending on how much, like what kind of visual effects they're doing, might be I'm kind of struggling between the Marvels and Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I have not seen Ant-Man yet because at least from the trailers, again, I can't speak to the movie. From the trailers and from what I have seen, the effects are getting pretty crazy. Like they're getting pretty imaginative and nuts. But everyone hates the movie, so that's not helping it. Again, it doesn't automatically mean curtains. I mean, The Lion King, literally, hell, again, like I said, it could have won. I mean, it did win the most Visual Effects Society awards, so it's not curtains. But maybe that could very much hurt Ant-Man. And then you have the Marvels, which again, we don't know that much about what kind of effects are in the movie. It's just kind of like we see a bit of their powers. Uh, so yeah, admittedly, currently I have Marvels at number 6 and Ant-Man at number 7, but I'm not exactly sure where I put them. Again, I haven't seen either, but what are your thoughts?
I think Ant-Man is insanely high. I'll admit, I'll admit, having seen Ant-Man, not only do people not like the movie, but people don't like the visual effects. And yeah, it gets crazy for sure. But if something like Doctor Strange couldn't get in, albeit you can't compare, years, I get it. But Ant-Man, it gets crazy, but it genuinely doesn't look good. And I am not some Marvel hater. I don't wake up like twiddling my thumbs, being like, "What am I gonna tweet about Marvel today?" But I was actually like really surprised at how bad the visual effects were in Ant-Man and the Wasp. The Marvels, on the other hand, we're going off a trailer. I like the trailer. I think as far as a movie, the visual effects will be a little tough, but anytime people think that there can't be two Marvel movies nominated, it's happened. It's
Yeah.
happened before, even most recently with Shang-Chi and Spider-Man. So you can never say no, and it's definitely not curtains for either, as you said, but Ant-Man, I would put lower. The Marvels has a shot.
Yeah, and I should also mention, from 6 to 10, those are the films that I think would make the. If I'm putting a movie in like within the top 10, I'm predicting that for the short list. So I think either way, I think Ant-Man and Marvels could get shortlisted because again, Marvel. But
Yeah.
I again, I haven't quite seen them, so so it's kind of tough.
Yeah.
Number 8, it's interesting. Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. Again, a film I haven't seen yet, which I really do want to see. But this is interesting, at least from the trailers. I don't. Have you seen this movie?
I have.
All right, cool. I think Dungeons and like at least from the trailers, this looks to have a lot of different kinds of crazy effects, like magic, like creatures, like transforming into creatures, crazy magic environments, even some practical effects in there. I think that like the variety of effects definitely helps, and also everyone loves this movie. From everything I've heard about Dungeons and Dragons, everyone absolutely loves this movie. Uh, but there's one thing that could probably hurt it, and that is the movie flopped so bad, and I'm not sure if the studio will want to campaign it. Now, granted, flops have made it to the visual effects race before. I mean, what were what were some cool some examples? I don't think Deepwater Horizon did very well at the box office. Christopher Robin didn't do very well at the box office, but I don't know. What do you think about Dungeons and Dragons chances?
Yeah, I think that could be a sleeper pick. So I do because it does have it has the whole package of a visual effects thing. It kind of reminds me of, and it's only because it's so recent. Like in 2020, I know it's a COVID year. Just bear with me for the
Yeah, no,
analogy.
they
The like Love and Monsters getting in was kind of surprising to me, and Dungeons and Dragons kind of feels like that, except with a bigger budget,
hmm
where it's just kind of like it's better than what people thought. As far as the movie, the visual effects were better than people thought, and you said Dungeons and Dragons does have a lot of practical visual effects. Also, the visual effects are pretty good. It's a relatively fun movie. It's kind of that fantasy adventure thing, which they're not afraid to nominate. It's not some genre thing. So I actually think that that could be a sleeper. I don't think I'd have it in, but it's one of those things to kind of keep your eye on throughout the season.
Yeah, I really want to see how award season, mainly the visual effects branch, takes it. And I would say to Love and Monsters, again, it was 2020. Of the movies in the shortlist, I would have nominated it. Like it did, like for 2020, it did have some of the best effects of that year.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. The next one here, I'm putting Ghostbusters 4 in the shortlist because the like Afterlife surprised everyone by getting in the shortlist. Hell, I didn't even see Afterlife until it got into the shortlist. And then when I saw it, I was like, "Holy shit, this is going to get a nomination." And then it didn't, when I got sad. But um, considering how well Ghostbusters Afterlife ended up performing, at least in the short list, like actually getting in, I'm thinking it could get shortlisted. I'm not expecting a nomination, especially since it's not as fresh as like Afterlife. But what about you?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I mean, I think something that we always kind of forget is the visual effects branch. When the shortlist comes out, there's always a bunch of like really popular franchising movies. I mean, just look at last year, like Fantastic Beasts.
Yeah,
Like I really don't know anyone who really likes that movie. I'll be
yeah,
honest. And then it still gets in. There was like another movie that was shortlisted that I'm forgetting
Jurassic
off the top of
World,
my head.
Dominion.
The Jurassic World. So Jurassic World of Fantastic Beasts gets in, and everyone's like why? Like no one really like felt passionate about those movies,
But the
but it gets
effects.
in because people respect the effects of a big budget franchise movie and how much visual effects there are. So Ghostbusters 4 makes sense as a shortlist.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think it could definitely get in. And yeah, I really didn't like Fantastic Beasts or Jurassic World, but I didn't mind them being on the short list, which only confound. But I was very confounded when they got nominated at Visual Effects Society for the top prize over Doctor Strange. I was like, "Are you shitting me? How do you do that? Why?"
Yeah.
But yeah, number 10 is an interesting pick, and I need to see. I really do need to see this movie, and it's a bit of a long shot, and that is Rebel Moon. Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon. I'm From the brief shot we have seen of Rebel Moon, where it's like this ship and it's going up. It looks really, really good. Like maybe some of the best effects in the kind of Zack Snyder uh his filmography. Now granted, I'm not, a Zack Snyder, like, oh, we saw the Snyderverse, so I'm not one, like, but I think I, if, if I'm not mistaken, I think Rebel Moon was supposed to be a Star Wars movie that, Zack Snyder wanted to do, but ultimately that fell apart, and so it became Rebel Moon. That if that's the case, we might be in for something really cool that could be a sleeper. But it is tough. What do you think?
Yeah, it is kind of one of those things where like a trailer would help because just everything behind the movie, like the cast and crew, what the movie's about, you could see this being like, oh my God, like this is incredible, like visually. Or you can see this being like, it looks like sewer water. Like, so it really, we need to see something a little bit more. I would like to see a trailer before it, but at this point, like in the race, having it at 10, no one's gonna argue that.
Yeah. And you might be a bit surprised that I have like The Flash and Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom outside of that 10, meaning I'm not even predicting them for the short list. And then there's also Shazam. I'll also lump in Shazam Fury of the Gods and Blue Beetle. And you want to know the one reason why I'm not putting him in the top 10?
What is it?
When have you ever seen a DC Universe movie get into the short list for visual effects?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, they have a tough time.
yeah. Even when you have movies that honestly are kind of deserving, like Man of Steel, The Suicide Squad, even for 2020, Wonder Woman 84 somehow didn't get in, and like. I'm just like, Jesus Christ! Like they get the DC universe gets screwed over, and now granted, people are gonna inevitably say, "Well, what about the Batman?" The Batman wasn't a DC universe; it was an Elseworlds thing. But even I don't care how the effects in the Flash and Aquaman or any of the others, they could be absolutely incredible. I'll be like, holy shit. They will not, the visual effects branch, they will not go after the DC universe whatsoever. They won't touch that with a 20-foot pole.
Yeah, it's another tough beat for DC versus Marvel there. And Warner Bros. I can't imagine they're concerned with an awards push for those movies when they have Dune Part 2 sitting there. Not including the other movies, but just visual effects wise. All the money is going behind Dune Part 2 to sweet visual effects. I don't see why they'd even bother pushing The Flash or something like that.
Yeah, like it's just sad. And again, I'm looking at the trailers for The Flash. The effects do look really good. Apparently Tom Cruise even said this is what cinema is made for, which I'm like, how good is this movie actually? Like I'm starting to get concerned apparently, I think they're going to be showing it at CinemaCon this year, which is I
Yeah, they
think
are.
this week.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, even I would like to imagine a world where these DC movies possibly get in for visual effects, but I'm not playing the game anymore. Like they just don't do the visual effects branch just does not do DC. They just, or at least the DC universe. So I'm
Yeah.
automatically counting them out.
Yeah, it's funny. I talked to someone who saw The Flash at a test screening, and he was like, "Yo, that was trash. So that was awful." And
Oh,
then all the word coming out like months afterwards, because he saw a pretty rough cut.
oh,
Now all the word is like, "It's the greatest thing ever." So I'm interested. I'm more so curious to see it
yeah. I'm
rather than
curious.
actually. Yeah, curious is the right word versus I'm actually interested to see the Flash. But yeah, visual effects wise, I don't know. I don't
Again,
see it.
I think again, like I said, they could be amazing. They could be absolutely amazing, but
Could be.
they just don't do DCU. Then number 13 is Transformers: Rise of the Beasts. Again, I like now. Granted, what was it? Like first Transformers was in like really should have won visual effects, but it lost to the Golden Compass. Then you had like Transformers. What was it? Revenge of the Fallen. That was the second one. It didn't get nominated, but in a field of five, it probably could have. Then you got Dark of the Moon. It got nominated, and even Age of Extinction got shortlisted. Then The Last Night didn't even appear in the list of 20, and Bumblebee, probably because everyone loved it and it came out very late in the year, it made the list of 20, but not the list of 10. I think, especially considering the director, Stephen Caple Jr., uh, Transformers Rise of the Beast, I think, will make the short list of 20, but I don't believe it will make the short list of 10 because I'm not really sure what else you can do with Transformers that hasn't really been done before. What are your thoughts?
Yes, but I don't know. I just keep going back to seeing Fantastic Beasts and Jurassic World popping up, and it's just like maybe it's just too irresistible for something like that because I think Transformers Rise of the Beast is more likely than like an Aquaman personally or like one of the DC movies. But, I'm not gonna argue about it. I just don't see a nomination regardless, so maybe it's a moot point, but you can fight for a shortlist spot, Transformers. That'll
Yeah,
be a win for you.
yeah, that would be again. I am kind of curious to see what they actually do with the effects in this film. The next one, I can already see a lot of people putting this in like the top five or the top 10, but I just don't really see Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part One making the shortlist of 10 because, like, okay, like people are gonna go Top Gun. I think Top Gun that was a lightning in a bottle thing. I don't think we're gonna see that repeated. You know, uh, like really anytime soon. And plus, when it comes to Mission Impossible, only two Mission Impossible movies actually made it to the shortlist, which was the first one and Ghost Protocol. Unless there's like unbelievable stuff that we're not being shown, I don't have much confidence in Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part One. You?
Same. I don't know why the Academy is so against Mission Impossible. I don't get it compared to some of the other stuff, but just based off track record, I mean, Fallout was incredible. Everyone loved Fallout. It made a lot of money. Just blanked. I would have to assume the same for Dead Reckoning Part 1. I mean, if Dead Reckoning Part 2 truly is the end of Mission Impossible and Tom Cruise, maybe that one actually stands a chance, but for this one, I just don't see it. They just ignore it.
Yeah, I admittedly I wouldn't have really nominated Fallout either. Like those like the weird skydiving sequence, and then they had that pointless storm. I was like, what?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
why'd they have that storm in there? That was
Yeah.
weird. Then okay, we have not even seen a trailer for this, but the Hunger Games: The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I do, because it's Hunger Games and it is a list of 20. I'm putting it on here, but depending on what we will actually be seeing, like and what kinds of effects they're using, maybe it could go up. But again, I don't really know anything about the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, but I don't know. I'm expecting you're probably in the same boat.
Yeah, I literally have no idea. Like, I don't even know what this is about.
Same.
I certainly didn't read the book for that one, at
No.
least. So, yeah, this one's, it's just a wait and see. You kind of have to put it there because it is the Hunger Games, but I don't know. What are you going to do with it?
Yeah, because I think like when they expanded the first round to be 20 films. The first year to do that was 2015, and that was when the Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2 got in. So it's like, all right, if that can do it, then probably Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And then the other one is Shazam: Fury of the Gods. I'm just lumping that in with all the other DC stuff. I haven't seen it, but I don't know. Did you see Shazam? I think you saw Shazam.
Yeah, I saw it. I mean, it's just it's whatever. Like it's the most like whatever movie, you know.
Yeah.
I don't see it.
I can already see people maybe wanting to push Cocaine Bear because like, oh man, that was a crazy movie. Wouldn't that be crazy? And plus, they actually got Cocaine Bear on stage. I think people like I can already see people saying it's going to get like shortlisted or nominated at the end of the year. I don't see it because I think that's like the fun pick that everyone wants to get in, but like the visual effects branch are gonna go, no, we've seen better bears than this. Like we've seen the Revenant bear, we've seen the Baloo from the Jungle Book, we've seen I don't know, like even though it's not a movie, but Yorick Bernison from His Dark Materials. Like we don't need to see Cocaine Bear in here. But yeah, I don't think Cocaine Bear will even get shortlisted. That's me. What about you?
The Bear and Cocaine Bear is not good for visual effects. It's just it's like it's so like the visual effects really honestly is not good in Cocaine Bear. And maybe it doesn't need to be to still be that quote unquote fun movie that I wish was more fun than it actually was. So I just don't see it.
And then there's number 18, and this was actually like a last minute push into the 20, which is Extraction 2. Now the first Extraction film came out in 2020, like so. And it didn't make the shortlist of 10, but I don't know what they might have in store for Extraction 2. But again, in a shortlist of 20, I could, again, you gotta have a couple of Netflix films in there. I think I could maybe see it getting in a list of 20. How about you?
Uh, maybe. I mean, I think the budget is bigger for Extraction 2, which may speak to more visual effects heavy, which I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but the first Extraction was actually a big success for Netflix, albeit that was like the COVID lockdown movie at first. So maybe that was kind of inflated, but yeah, congratulations on being 18.
Yeah. And then I'm at number 19. I like it depends on where this movie kind of goes, and that is Elemental. And the reason why I'm putting Elemental in the short list of 20 is because uh the, from what I heard, they're blending lots of different kind of animation styles together for this film, and I think maybe it could actually granted, animated films for visual effects is kind of rare. We saw. I mean, granted, we did get that with with Soul, but even then you had Lion King, which I still profess as an animated movie. But you had in 2018 there was like Isle of Dogs and Incredibles 2 in the short list of 20. But then and I think if I'm not mistaken, they didn't release the whole list of 20 in 2021, and granted they didn't do that this year either. It was Clayton Davis who found out what the short list of 20 was this year. But in 2021, I think the Mitchells versus the Machines actually made the short list of 20. But
Mm.
again, I only know a select few of those.
Yeah.
But I think like because I was juggling between this and maybe Spider Verse 2, but I don't really see Spider Verse doing it unless we're not being told the whole story, or at least like the whole story behind the visual effects behind Spider Verse 2. But right now, I think maybe the potential animated pick could be Elemental. But I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, animated films are just I don't know what it is since a couple years after they expanded it. And animated films like truly have to be like a masterpiece to even get consideration elsewhere. So because of that, it's just so hard for them to get like nominations
Yeah.
anywhere. So I wouldn't assume so. I mean, to be, I think I would go with Spider-Verse over
Oh.
Elemental, but at this point, it's fighting for scraps at this point.
Yeah, it'll never get nominated, but I think maybe there's a chance it could maybe squeeze in a list of 20, but who knows? And okay, here's the weird pick, and that's Barbie. Look, it's never gonna get in a short list of 10. No way in hell. But Elvis got in a short list of 20. That was weird. Gigi and Nate, a movie that I didn't even know it even existed until Clayton Davis found out that it was the 20th film in this year's shortlist. If Elvis and Gigi and Nate can get in, I think Barbie has to at least be in consideration. Again, it'll never get in, but
Yeah, I respect the swing. Like you just can't tell with that random weird slot. It's
yeah,
gonna be some random movie we're not even thinking about. So
yeah. There's always something weird. There's
yeah,
always
there's always
something weird.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like again, I don't even know why. I'm one of the people who did love Elvis. I don't know why that was in there for visual effects though. I don't know why that was ever a possibility. And then there's like the ones that I just don't think will happen. I've already talked about Blue Beetle again. DC, nope. Fast X, okay. The Fast and Furious movies, they've kind of been hit or miss when it comes to the short list. First one made it in. Made it into the final shortlist. In a shortlist of 20, both Hobbs and Shaw and Furious 7 made it in. Fate of the Furious didn't make it in. I don't know if F9, the Fast Saga, made it in. Maybe it did, but they didn't show it, but we don't know what the full list of 20 was. But right now, I'm not really anticipating Fast X, but I don't know. We'll have to see how it goes, but I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, I've been pretty public that I am like so out on this franchise right now, but visual effects specifically, even still, it's like you said, it's so hit or miss. I just don't know what they could do that would garner them being like, oh, okay, like now let's do it. Like let's add him in. So, yeah.
Yeah. Again, never going to be not like this. It should just be prefaced that none of these movies will ever get nominated, but you know, but yeah, at Fast X, we'll have to see. Craven the Hunter, I don't think so. I don't think that's happening.
Is that coming out this year?
I think it is. I think at
Oh,
least last time I checked, Craven the Hunter was supposed to come out this year, but
oh, all
Venom
right.
one, yeah, Venom one didn't pull it off. It didn't get shortlisted, even though it got like a Visual Effects Society nomination for like I think it was effect simulations.
Mm.
Then uh, what was it? I don't know if Venom Let There Be Carnage made it in. I don't know if it did. I know it made I know Venom 2 made the BAFTA shortlist for visual effects, so maybe it got in. I don't know. And then Morbius, that film appeared absolutely nowhere. To everyone's disarray and sadness. Morbius
Right.
didn't. But yeah, I
Bummer.
don't. Yeah, wait, what'd you say?
I was saying that's a bummer for Morbius. I was
Yeah.
rooting for it.
Yeah. Killers of the Flower Moon, that could also be the weird movie that gets
Yeah,
in.
I was gonna say, yeah, it could
Yeah.
be.
Yeah, yeah, if it's not Barbie, or maybe if one of the other top 20 gets left out, maybe Killers of the Flower Moon gets in, because The Irishman got nominated. Wolf of Wall Street, I think in a list of 20 could have gotten in, because there was a lot, like it even got nominated for supporting visual effects at VES Society. One person said Napoleon could do it because it's a war movie, but I don't know, because something like Dunkirk, even Dunkirk didn't get nominated, but like Dunkirk, 1917, All Quiet on the Western Front, what do those movies have in common? It was World War One. You had airplanes, tanks, heavy machinery. Napoleon, to the best of my knowledge, was just like horses and cannons. Maybe I don't even know if cannons existed back then. Maybe they did. Uh, I'm not a history buff, but I don't think Napoleon will get in purely because it's not that kind of war movie that would get nominated or the very least shortlisted. Maybe.
Yeah, I at least for now, I don't think so. I mean, with the war movie, like 1917 Dunkirk, All Quiet on the Western Front, the focus on the movie is on the act of war. And that's why those movies got in for visual effects. I don't know if Napoleon, if the focus on the movie is going to be him during like the battle of war rather than more so a character study that happens to be during war. So I don't know. I don't see it.
Yeah, it's just the time period for me kind of
Right.
sets me off. Wonka, I don't know what they're doing with Wonka. Maybe we see Loompa Land. Maybe we see the construction of the factory. I don't really know. I don't really know anything about Wonka other than it's about Willy Wonka and there's Timothy Chalamet and it's being directed by the Paddington guy. All right. It looks great. I don't know if that means it's going to get a visual effects nomination. Although The Witches, even though, again, it's 2020, it did get nominated for the top prize of Visual Effects Society that year. So maybe we'll have to see. But yeah, The Meg 2, The Trench, I think maybe this movie's coming out this year. I don't know, the first Meg, it didn't get in, so it didn't, not even in a short list of 20 it did, so I'm not really predicting this. Haunted Mansion, I really need to keep my eye on, admittedly. It is Disney, so it could maybe do that. But, I just don't know this movie would have to be really, this would have to be an absolutely insane movie, in terms of effects to get nominated, I feel. But we'll have to see how this works out.
Yeah.
John Wick Chapter 4, never gonna happen. I can already sense a lot of people maybe seeing visual effects breakdowns and going, nominate it or put it in the short list, and it's not gonna happen. It's John Wick. It's not that kind of action movie that will get in. Ferrari, I'm only putting this in there maybe because Ford v Ferrari, because
Yeah.
yeah, but
That's good reasoning enough, honestly.
yeah, but I don't really expect. That's literally the only hunch I'm going off of. Maybe for all I know, there's nothing in this movie. So there's that. Damsel, have you heard of Damsel?
No, I was gonna ask what that is.
I think it's this Millie Bobby Brown movie about a princess and she fights a dragon and stuff. So
Wow.
that's at least it's a dragon. So considering I know absolutely nothing about this movie, I'm not granted. There's some other movies I don't really know a whole lot about that are in the top 20, but at least with something like Hunger Games, there's at least there's precedent to be had because it's a franchise film. I don't know anything about Damsel, so or even at the very least with Rebel Moon. It's Zack Snyder. It's a big space epic, so I could maybe predict. I don't know where they're gonna go with Damsel. 65, that's not happening. I can't see that ever happening.
Such a bad movie, man. Oh my god. I just watched it a few days ago. God damn, that was bad.
Yeah,
Jeez.
I haven't seen it. The effects don't look bad to me, at least from the trailers. It's just the designs of the dinosaurs look like overkill. It's like they're trying
nothing
too hard
special.
to be scary. Plane, I'm only putting this in there because it's a movie with visual effects. Again, haven't seen it, but I don't think that's ever gonna happen. I don't know.
Yeah, most of the visual effects happens just during the plane crash, which doesn't even last that long.
And
So
it's
I don't
probably
see it.
nothing remarkable, really.
No, no.
Yeah. And
Not
then,
not that bad of a movie though.
And then there's the one. This is the A24 pick. This is the A24 pick that I have a pretty good track record. All right. Everyone was telling me, Christian, the Green Knight's going to get nominated for visual effects. It's even going to get shortlisted. It's going to get shortlisted. I'm like, no, it's not. The effects aren't really that groundbreaking or amazing. And then, what do you know? It didn't get shortlisted. And every film Twitter cried while I was right. And then came Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I said the exact same thing. Everyone was saying, it's going to get nominated for visual effects. It's going to get nominated. I was like, it's not. I mean, it's kind of cool for a movie that costs $25 million? I don't know.
Yeah.
But people were going, 6 people worked on the effects in this movie. And that is cool that 6 people worked on the effects in this movie, and again, this isn't any disrespect at all, but it's really just in the grand scheme of visual effects. The movie kind of had 6 people's worth of visual effects to work on. Because it's not a lot, nothing really stood out to me as really groundbreaking. It was just kind of, it was decent. And I said it's not going to get shortlisted. I'm telling you all this. And sure enough, Everything Everywhere All at Once, nowhere to be seen, not even a supporting visual effects nomination at Visual Effects Society. I can already see people are going to say Beau is Afraid, because I've seen the trailers, that Beau is Afraid is going to get nominated for visual effects. I can just see that happening because it's that A24 movie. I'm just like, they don't do A24. They never shortlist A. The only time they've ever nominated an A24 movie was Ex Machina, and that was a film that I thought like actually did break some ground. But I could just sniff out people saying that Beau is Afraid is going to get nominated for visual effects, and that will never happen in a million years. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Beau's Afraid is just not being touched by the Academy. Just from everything I've heard about the movie, it does not seem like an Academy-friendly movie. I was surprised when people are like, "Yo, where's Beau's Afraid?" on my own like picture predictions. I'm like, this is not one of those movies, and I haven't seen it. I'm seeing it on Tuesday. Let y'all know. But from everything I hear, even from the people who really love the movie, doesn't seem like it.
And guys, that is at least my April predictions, and also for the visual effects category at the 96th Academy Awards, and with a lot of help and insight from the Film Drunk. Thank you so much for coming along, Film Drunk. Where can people find you?
Yeah, I make it pretty simple. Just the Film Drunk on YouTube, Twitter, Letterboxd. You'll find me there.
And again, it was really fun having you on. You're a really cool guy for doing this.
Oh, of course. No, thanks for having me. This is good for myself too, just hearing what you have to say in your movie. So I appreciate that.
Oh man, thank you so much.